Welcome to the Sleep Quest. Todo, we will go over the science of dreams until you fall asleep. Preface: the silent cinema. Every night without fail humanity embarks on its most intimate and enigmatic journey. We close our eyes to the external world and awaken into an internal one, a silent cinema where we are simultaneously the writer, director, actor, and audience. This is the realm of dreams. For millennia, it has been a source of divine prophecy, demonic terror, artistic inspiration, and profound personal insight. We have sought its meaning in sacred texts, in the patterns of tea leaves, and on the analyst's couch. But what is a dream? Is it merely the chaotic firing of neurons in a resting brain, a meaningless neurological froth? Or is it a purposeful, highly evolved function essential for our psychological and emotional well-being? This essay seeks to navigate the labyrinth of the dreaming mind, guided by the torch of peer-reviewed scientific literature. We will journey from the fundamental architecture of sleep to the complex neurochemical ballet that gives rise to dream imagery. We will visit the grand theories of the 20th century's psychological titans and explore the cutting-edge hypotheses of modern neuroscience. Yet, this exploration is not merely academic. The world of dreams is personal. It is often a landscape of our deepest fears and most fervent hopes. Therefore, woven into this scientific tapestry are stories and anecdotes not as proof, but as companions. They are gentle narratives crafted from the very theories we will discuss, designed to reframe our relationship with our dreams, to help us see them not as frightening intruders but as valuable, albeit strange, allies. They are stories to sleep on, providing a calm harbor from which to set sail into the vast, mysterious, and ultimately restorative ocean of sleep. This is episode I of that journey, our first steps into the gateway of the unconscious. Chapter 1: The Architecture of Sleep, building the stage for dreams. Before a single dream image can flicker into existence, the stage must be set. That stage is sleep itself, a state far from passive, but rather a highly structured and dynamic process. Understanding the architecture of sleep is the first and most critical step. 1.1 The rhythms of rest, circadian and ultradian cycles. Our sleep is governed by two primary biological rhythms. The first and most well-known is the circadian rhythm, from the Latin circa diem, meaning about a day. This is our master internal clock. The SCN responds primarily to light, orchestrating a 24-hour cycle of physiological processes, including the release of hormones like melatonin, which promotes sleep, and cortisol, which promotes wakefulness. This is why we feel sleepy at night and alert during the day. The stage is now set. We understand the physical environment of the sleeping brain. Now we must ask, who or what is writing the script? Chapter 2: The Neurological Ghost in the Machine, How the brain builds a dream. To say that dreams happen in REM sleep is like saying a film happens in a movie theater. It's true, but it tells us nothing about the projector, the film, the sound system, or the story. To understand how dreams are generated, 2.1 The conductor in the brainstem, pons and dream initiation. The on switch for REM sleep. During the transition into REM sleep, specific groups of neurons in the pons, the pontin tegmentum, become highly active. They fire off signals upwards into the forebrain and downwards into the spinal cord. Signals upward, these signals, primarily driven by the neurotransmitter acetylcholine ACT, travel to the thalamus, which acts as the brain's great relay station for sensory information. In waking life, the thalamus directs sights, sounds, and sensations from the outside world to the cerebral cortex for processing. In REM sleep, the thalamus is hijacked by the pons. It blocks incoming signals from the external world and instead relays the internally generated signals. This is the first step in creating a closed, self-contained dream world. Signals downward. Simultaneously, the pons sends inhibitory signals down the spinal cord, paralyzing the body's voluntary muscles. This is the crucial mechanism of rematonia, ensuring we remain safely immobile in bed while we might be dreaming of running, flying, or fighting. 2.2 The emotional core, the amygdala and hippocampus unleashed. Once the brain is online in REM sleep and cut off from the outside world, other key brain structures are brought into the play. The signals from the pons powerfully activate the limbic system, the brain's emotional and memory center. Two structures are particularly important. The amygdala, this almond-shaped structure, is the seat of raw emotion, especially fear, aggression, and pleasure. During REM sleep, the amygdala becomes hyperactive, often even more active than during wakefulness. This is the neurological reason why dreams are so intensely emotional. The terror of a nightmare, the joy of a reunion with a loved one, the anxiety of being unprepared for an exam, these feelings are not just imagined. They are being generated by the same neural hardware that produces them when we are awake. The hippocampus. This structure is critical for memory formation and spatial navigation. The hippocampus is also highly active during REM sleep. This is why our dreams are often populated with familiar people, places, and events, albeit often recombined in strange and novel ways. The dream is built from the fragments of our past, from the day's residue, and the deep archives of our life's experiences. 2.3 The voice of reason silenced, deactivation of the prefrontal cortex. Perhaps the most crucial piece of the puzzle in explaining the bizarre and illogical nature of dreams is not what becomes active, but what becomes inactive. The prefrontal cortex PFC, particularly the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, is the brain's executive suite. It is responsible for logical reasoning, planning, self-awareness, critical thinking, and working memory. During REM sleep, this deactivation explains the most common features of our dreams. Lack of insight. We accept that we can fly, that our deceased grandmother is making us breakfast, or that we are in our childhood home, but it is also somehow a spaceship. This is because the part of our brain that would normally say wait, this makes no sense, is temporarily offline. Bizarre scenarios without the police's linear, logical guidance, the brain is free to make associative leaps. It connects memories, concepts, and emotions based on loose connections rather than coherent causality, leading to the surreal, disjointed narratives of our dreams. Amnesia. Upon waking, we often forget our dreams almost instantly. This is partly because the neurochemical state of REM sleep, particularly the low levels of norepinephrine, is not conducive to encoding new memories into long-term storage. The police role in working memory is also diminished, making it hard to hold on to the dream narrative as we transition to wakefulness. 2.4 The AIM model, a modern framework for dream generation. In the late 1970s, Harvard psychiatrists J. Allen Hobson and Robert McCarley proposed the influential activation synthesis hypothesis. It was a revolutionary biological theory, but criticized for downplaying the meaningfulness and complexity of dreams. Over the decades, Hobson refined this idea into the more nuanced AIM model. This framework provides a powerful way to understand the state of the dreaming brain by mapping it on three axes. Activation, the overall level of brain activation from low deep sleep to high waking and REM. I input source, the source of information the brain is processing. During wakefulness, the input is primarily external sights, sounds. During dreaming, it is entirely internal. And modulation, the specific mix of neurotransmitters that colors our consciousness. In REM sleep, the unique point in this three-dimensional state space defined by high activation internal input and a specific act-dominant neurochemical cocktail is the REM dream state. It is a predictable, biologically determined state of consciousness that produces the phenomenal experience we call dreaming. Chapter 3 The Great Interpreters, Pioneering Theories of Dream Function. Before we had the tools to look inside the sleeping brain, we had the tools of introspection, philosophy, and psychology to ask the fundamental question, why? What is the purpose of this nightly theater? The answers provided by the giants of 20th century psychology have so profoundly shaped our cultural understanding of dreams that no scientific discussion is complete without them. 3.1 Sigmund Freud, The Royal Road to the Unconscious. In 1900, Sigmund Freud published The Interpretation of Dreams, a book that would forever change the way Western culture viewed the dreaming mind. For Freud, dreams were not random noise. They were purposeful, meaningful messages from the deepest hidden part of the psyche, the unconscious. He proposed that dreams are a form of wish fulfillment. They are a stage upon which our repressed, unacceptable, and unconscious desires, often sexual or aggressive in nature, can be safely acted out. However, these desires are too shocking for the conscious mind, the ego, to face directly. Therefore, a psychic censor disguises them through a process Freud called dream work. This process transforms the true, hidden meaning of the dream latent content into the bizarre, often nonsensical story we remember manifest content. The goal of Freudian dream analysis was to reverse the dream work, to decode the symbols of the manifest content, e.g., a train entering a tunnel, to reveal the repressed wishes hidden in the latent content. For Freud, dreams were the royal road to a knowledge of the unconscious activities of the mind. 3.2 Carl Jung Dialogues with the Collective Self. Carl Jung, initially a disciple of Freud, broke away to form his own school of analytical psychology. He shared Freud's belief that dreams were meaningful messages from the unconscious, but he disagreed profoundly on their purpose and nature. For Jung, dreams were not primarily about hiding repressed wishes. Instead, their purpose was compensation and integration. He believed the psyche constantly seeks balance and wholeness. A dream, therefore, would often highlight the parts of ourselves we were neglecting in our waking life. If you were overly intellectual, you might dream of primal earthy experiences. If you were too timid, you might dream of acts of courage. The dream was not trying to trick you. It was trying to help you, to show you the path toward a more complete self. Furthermore, Jung expanded the concept of the unconscious. He proposed that beneath our personal unconscious, filled with our own repressed memories and experiences, lay a deeper layer common to all humanity, the collective unconscious. This realm contained archetypes universal, primordial symbols and images such as the wise old man, the great mother, the shadow, our dark side, and the animus, the contrasexual aspect of our personality. Dreams, for Jung, were often a direct line to this collective wisdom, presenting us with archetypal figures and situations that offered profound guidance. 3.3 The fading of the psychodynamic monopoly. While the theories of Freud and Jung were revolutionary and remain culturally influential, they are largely unfalsifiable from a scientific standpoint. They rely on subjective interpretation and cannot be proven or disproven with empirical data. Modern neuroscience, with its ability to map the dreaming brain, has not found evidence for a sensor or specific archetypal brain modules. However, this does not render their contributions moot. Their core insight that dreams are intimately connected to our emotional concerns, our memories, and our sense of self has been largely validated, albeit through a different lens. Modern theories do not see dreams as coded messages to be deciphered, but as a functional process of the brain at work. Chapter 4, The Modern Synthesis. Why do we dream? Modern dream research has moved from asking what do dreams mean to what do dreams do. Using tools like fMRI PET scans and advanced EEG analysis, scientists have developed several compelling evidence-based theories about the adaptive function of dreaming. These theories are not mutually exclusive. It is likely that dreaming serves multiple functions simultaneously. 4.1 Overnight Therapy. The role of dreams in emotional regulation. This theory, championed by neuroscientist Matthew Walker, suggests that a key function of REM sleep dreaming is to strip away the emotional charge from difficult or traumatic memories. You can think of it as a form of overnight therapy. The neurochemical environment of REM sleep is unique. Walker posits that this allows the brain to replay distressing events without the associated anxiety. This process helps to recalibrate our emotional responses, allowing us to wake up feeling better about events that troubled us the day before. As the saying goes, we sleep on it, and in the morning things often seem less daunting. It suggests that the dream state evolved as a sophisticated biological defense mechanism. The theory posits that dreaming creates a realistic, immersive simulation of threatening events, being chased, attacked, falling, failing a task. By repeatedly practicing our responses to these threats in the safe, this would have conferred a significant survival advantage upon our ancestors. This theory provides a compelling explanation for why so many dreams are negative and anxiety-provoking. They are not necessarily a sign of psychological distress, but rather our brain's ancient, inbuilt fire drill system hard at work. 4.4 Creative Sparks in the Dark, Dreams and Problem Solving. History is filled with anecdotes of major scientific and artistic breakthroughs occurring in dreams. August Keckel famously deciphered the ring structure of the benzene molecule after dreaming of a snake biting its own tail. Paul McCartney claimed the melody for Yesterday came to him fully formed in a dream. Research supports this anecdotal evidence. The dreaming brain, unbound from the constraints of linear logic by the deactivated PFC, is exceptionally good at finding out-of-the-box solutions. It can form connections between disparate ideas that the waking mind would dismiss as illogical. By processing our waking problems in this highly associative state, the brain can sometimes stumble upon novel insights and creative solutions that eluded us during the day. Chapter 5, Stories to Sleep On. 3 Anecdotes for the Drifting Mind. Science gives us the how and the why. But as we prepare for sleep, let these anecdotes, inspired by the theories above, be a comforting guide. 5.1 The Weaver and the Tapestry. This story is inspired by memory consolidation theory. Imagine that every night a gentle, silent weaver sits down at a great loom within your mind. The threads she uses are the events, sensations, and feelings of your day. Some threads are thick and vibrant, a moment of great joy or a sharp sting of sadness. Others are thin and pale, the mundane commute, the taste of your coffee. All night the weaver works. She is not creating a perfect photographic copy of your day. That would be a cluttered and useless thing. Instead, her task is to weave the new threads into the vast, ancient tapestry that is you. She takes the thread of a conversation you had today and weaves it into the section containing all your knowledge about that person. She takes the thread of a new skill you learned and strengthens the pattern of your abilities. She finds weak spots in the tapestry, old, frayed memories, and reinforces them, or decides that some threads are no longer needed and lets them fall away. Sometimes in her weaving, she creates strange and surprising patterns. The color from a morning flower might bleed into the face of a childhood friend. The texture of a problem at work might get mixed up with the pattern of an old. If you happen to glimpse her work, this is what you call a dream. It seems bizarre because you are only seeing a small part of a grand and purposeful process. You are seeing the underside of the tapestry with all its knots and crossed threads. So as you fall asleep, know that the weaver is simply doing her vital work. She is not there to frighten you, but to take the chaos of your day and weave it into the beautiful, strong, and ever-growing tapestry of your life. Trust her hands. Let her weave. 5.2 The Gardener of Emotions. This story is inspired by emotional regulation theory. Think of your heart as a magnificent garden. During the day, as you live your life, all sorts of things happen in this garden. People throw seeds into it. Some are seeds of kindness and laughter, which sprout into bright flowers. Others are seeds of anger or worry, which grow into thorny, tangled weeds that can choke the light. By the end of the day, the garden can be a messy, overwhelming place. When you fall asleep, a quiet gardener arrives. This is the dreamer in you. Her only task is to tend to this garden. She walks through the paths of your mind with a soft, glowing lantern. She doesn't rip out the thorny weeds violently. Instead, she gently inspects them, understands why they grew, and then carefully prunes them back. She takes the thorny branch of an argument, the anger, the sting, and clips it, leaving only the memory of the conversation itself. She loosens the soil around the roots of a worry, allowing it to breathe and shrink. She spends most of her time watering the good things. She tends to the flowers of joy, nurtures the saplings of new ideas, and ensures the deep-rooted trees of your love and strength are healthy. The dream you experience is just a glimpse of this nightly gardening. You might see the thorns, the strange plants, the shadows cast by her lantern. But her work is always one of care and healing. So as you drift off, imagine this gentle gardener entering your heart. She is there to help, She is ensuring that when you wake to the morning sun, your garden is a little clearer, a little lighter, and ready for a new day of growth. 5.3 The Celestial Archivist. This story is inspired by theories of creativity and problem solving. Deep within your mind is a library unlike any other. It is not filled with books, but with glowing celestial spheres, and each sphere contains a single memory, idea, or feeling you have ever had. The collection is vast, stretching out like a galaxy. During the day, the librarian, who is your conscious mind, is very strict. He only allows you to access spheres that are logically related to one another. He keeps everything in neat, orderly rows, work problems in this aisle, family memories in another. But when you fall asleep, the celestial archivist takes his place. The archivist is a playful, curious creature of light. He does not care for orderly rows. He delights in rearranging the library. He might take a sphere containing the color blue from your childhood bedroom and place it next to a sphere containing the solution to a complex mathematical equation. He might take the feeling of a hug from your mother and set it beside an idea for a new business. He zips through the aisles, creating new temporary constellations of thought. To you, this activity appears as a dream, a chaotic, nonsensical light show. But the archivist's play is not without purpose. By connecting things that the strict librarian would never allow to touch, he sometimes creates a pattern of breathtaking genius. He reveals a solution that was hidden in plain sight, an idea born from the marriage of two completely unrelated concepts. So when you lie down with a problem on your mind, do not hold on to it too tightly. Hand it over to the celestial archivist. Let him take the glowing sphere of your problem and toss it into the cosmic dance of your memories. Trust his playful chaos. You may wake up with the problem solved, or you may simply feel lighter for having let it. Either way, the library of your mind will be richer for his nightly work. Conclusion to Episode I and prelude to Episode I. We have taken our first significant steps into the labyrinth. We have seen that the dream world is not built on sand, but on the firm biological bedrock of sleep architecture. We have journeyed through the neural corridors of the sleeping brain, observing how the pons initiates the dream, how the limbic system infuses it with emotion and memory, and how the dormant prefrontal cortex allows for its beautiful, terrifying absurdity. We have paid homage to the great psychological explorers. Yet, for all we have learned, the labyrinth stretches on its corridors, branching into ever deeper mysteries. What happens when we become aware that we are dreaming, a state known as lucid dreaming? Why do we suffer from nightmares, and what can they teach us? How do different cultures around the world interpret and utilize the dream state? Can we influence our dreams for therapeutic or creative benefit? And what does the future of dream engineering and AI-assisted dream analysis hold? These are the questions that await us in episode II, The Conscious Dreamer and the Shadowlands. For now, let the knowledge and stories from this first episode be your guide. May you enter the gateway of sleep not with apprehension, but with curiosity and trust, ready for the restorative, mysterious, and essential work that awaits you in the world of dreams. Introduction to Episode I, Beyond the Veil of Sleep. In Episode I, we established the fundamental landscape of the dreaming mind. We learned that dreams are not random noise, but a structured, purposeful neurobiological state emerging primarily from the paradoxical theater of REM sleep. We saw how this state serves to regulate our emotions, consolidate memories, and simulate threats. The dreams we discussed were the kind we all experience, immersive, often bizarre narratives in which we are largely passive actors, unaware that the world around us is a fabrication of our own minds. Now we push beyond this veil. This second episode explores the fascinating variations and extremes of the dream experience. We will investigate the remarkable phenomenon of lucid dreaming, where the light of consciousness switches on within the dream itself, transforming the dreamer from a passive participant into a potential author of their own experience. We will then turn our gaze to the darker corners of the mind, the Shadowlands, to understand the nature of nightmares and night terrors, asking not just why they haunt us, but what their function might be and how we can learn from them. Finally, we will step outside the laboratory and the clinic to see how humanity has engaged with dreams across cultures and throughout history, recognizing that our modern scientific view is but one of many ways to approach this profound human experience. This episode is about agency, fear, and meaning, the ways in which we can interact with, learn from, and find our place within the vast and varied world of our dreams. Chapter 6, Lucid Dreaming, Awakening Within the Dream. The experience is as startling as it is profound. In the midst of a dream, perhaps, as you are flying over a cityscape of molten cheese or talking to a long-lost pet, a switch flips. A moment of pure insight dawns. This is a dream. The world remains, but your relationship to it is irrevocably changed. This is a lucid dream, the state of being aware that you are dreaming while the dream is still in progress. 6.1 A History of Self-Aware Sleep, from Aristotle to Lauberg. While it seems like a modern concept, lucidity in dreams was noted by Aristotle, who wrote in On Dreams, for often when one is asleep. However, the scientific study of lucid dreaming is a relatively recent phenomenon. For much of the 20th century, it was regarded with skepticism by the scientific community. The breakthrough came in the late 1970s and early 1980s, pioneered by psychophysiologist Stephen Lauberg at Stanford University. Lauberg devised a brilliant method to prove that lucid dreamers were genuinely conscious during verifiable REM sleep. He instructed lucid dreamers to signal their lucidity from within the dream by making a specific, prearranged pattern of eye movements, e.g., left, right. Because the eyes are not paralyzed during REM sleep, these signals could be recorded in the sleep lab by an electroencephalogram EOG, providing the first objective, verifiable proof of consciousness during sleep. The phenomenon was real. 6.2 The neuroscience of lucidity. The prefrontal cortex rejoins the play. If, as we established in episode I, normal dreaming is characterized by the deactivation of the prefrontal cortex PFC, neuroimaging studies, particularly those by Ursula Voss and J. Allen Hobson, have provided a stunning answer. During a lucid dream, key areas of the PFC, specifically the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, the frontopolar cortex, and the precuneus, show a significant increase in activity, returning to a level similar to that of waking consciousness. These are the very brain regions associated with self-awareness, working memory, and volitional control, the exact cognitive functions that are absent in a typical dream, but are the hallmarks of a lucid one. In essence, a lucid dream appears to be a hybrid state of consciousness, combining the internally generated, immersive world of REM sleep with the restored self-awareness of the waking mind. Furthermore, studies have identified a spike in high-frequency gamma band activity 40 in the frontal lobes at the onset of lucidity. Gamma waves are thought to be critical for binding disparate neural processes into a single, coherent conscious experience. It seems to be the neurological signature of the aha moment when the dreamer recognizes the true nature of their reality. 6.3 Techniques for inducing lucidity, training the mind to awaken. Lucid dreaming is a learnable skill. Several techniques grounded in cognitive science have been developed to increase the frequency of lucid dreams. Reality testing or reality checks. This is the foundational practice. Throughout the day, you regularly pause and critically examine your environment and your own state, asking, "Am I dreaming?" You then perform a test whose outcome would be different in a dream than in reality. Common tests include trying to push your finger through the palm of your opposite hand, looking at a piece of text or a digital clock, which are often unstable and change upon a second glance in dreams, or pinching your nose and trying to breathe. The goal is to cultivate a habit of critical awareness so ingrained that it eventually carries over into the dream state, prompting you to perform the test and trigger lucidity. Mnemonic induction of lucid dreams mild, developed by Lauberg. This technique involves using prospective memory, the ability to remember to do something in the future. As you are falling asleep, you repeat a mantra to yourself, such as, "Next time I'm dreaming, I will remember that I'm dreaming." You visualize yourself in a recent dream, recognizing it as a dream. This sets an intention that your mind is primed to act upon when you next enter a dream state. Wake back to bed WBTB. This technique involves waking up after about 5 or 6 hours of sleep. This method capitalizes on the fact that REM periods are longer and more frequent in the later part of the night. Their eyes are wide open, their heart is racing, and they appear terrified, but they are not fully awake and are unresponsive to their surroundings. They may thrash about or even get out of bed. Crucially, because this is not REM sleep, the episode ends with the person falling back into deep sleep, and in the morning they have no memory of the event, only perhaps a vague feeling of chest pressure or a lingering sense of unease. A night terror is an experience of pure, non-narrative terror. A nightmare is a story that is terrifying. 7.2 The hyperactive amygdala, why nightmares feel so real. The neurological basis of a nightmare is an amplification of the normal REM state. As we know, the amygdala, the brain's fear and emotion center, is already highly active during REM sleep. A nightmare seems to occur when this activity becomes excessive or dysregulate. The brain's emotional regulation system, which should be processing and dampening fear during REM as proposed by the overnight therapy model, fails or becomes overwhelmed. This is particularly common in individuals with post-traumatic stress disorder (PTSD). In PTSD, the traumatic memory is so potent that the REM sleep mechanism is unable to strip away the emotional charge. Instead, it replays the trauma with its full emotional intensity night after night. 7.3 When threat simulation overflows, the purpose and peril of bad dreams. From an evolutionary perspective, as per the threat simulation theory, nightmares can be seen as the threat simulation system running at its highest, most urgent intensity. They may be the brain's way of running a level 5 simulation for a perceived major threat in one's waking life. A moderate amount of negative dream content is normal and likely adaptive, helping us prepare for challenges. However, when nightmares become frequent and severe, they cease to be adaptive. They disrupt sleep, cause daytime anxiety, and create a fear of falling asleep, leading to a vicious cycle of sleep deprivation and heightened stress. At this point, the Shadowlands are no longer a training ground but a prison, and therapeutic intervention is often necessary. Chapter 8 A World of Dreams, Cultural Interpretations, and Oniromancy. For most of human history, they were portals. They were messages. They were a reality as valid, and sometimes more valid, than the waking world. Stepping outside of our neurocentric model allows us to appreciate the rich tapestry of meaning that dreams have held for humanity. 8.1 The divine messenger dreams in the ancient world. In ancient Mesopotamia and Egypt, dreams were considered direct channels of communication from the gods. Kings and priests employed professional interpreters to decode the divine will hidden in symbolic dream narratives. The Epic of Gilgamesh, one of the oldest surviving works of literature, is filled with prophetic dreams that guide the hero's journey. Similarly, in the Abrahamic religions, dreams are a primary vehicle for prophecy. Joseph interpreting Pharaoh's dreams in the Old Testament is a classic example of oniromancy, divination through dreams. The ancient Greeks also held dreams in high regard. They practiced dream incubation, a ritual in which a person would sleep, while Plato viewed dreams as arising from our lower, appetitive soul. Aristotle took a more naturalistic approach, presaging modern science by suggesting they arose from the lingering sensory impressions of the day. 8.2 The other reality, dream practices in indigenous cultures. Many indigenous cultures do not make the sharp distinction between dreaming and reality that is fundamental to the Western worldview. For the Achuar people of the Amazon, for instance, dreams are not a simulation of reality. They are an experience within another equally important reality. Dreams reveal truths that are inaccessible to the waking senses and are shared and discussed collectively each morning to guide the community's decisions, from when to hunt to how to resolve social conflicts. Similarly, for the Mohave people native to the American Southwest, great myths and songs were not composed but were received fully formed in dreams. The dream was the source of all creativity and spiritual power. To have a great dream was to receive a lifelong source of guidance and purpose. 8.3 The individual verses. The collective, a shift in perspective. This brief survey reveals a profound shift. In most pre-modern and indigenous societies, dreams were a collective. Their meaning was public, their interpretation was often a specialized social role, and their purpose was to guide the community. With the rise of Freudian psychoanalysis, the dream became privatized. It became a message from one part of the individual's mind to another, a personal secret to be decoded in the private space of the therapeutic session. The contemporary scientific view takes this a step further, framing the dream as a function of the individual's brain. Recognizing this history enriches our understanding, reminding us that the dreaming mind can be viewed not just as a neurological process, but also as a source of personal meaning and a connection to a shared human heritage of wonder. Chapter 9 The Dreamer's Toolkit. Our modern understanding of dreams is not merely academic. It has given rise to powerful tools for healing and self-discovery. We can actively work with our dreams to improve our mental health and enrich our lives. 9.1 Confronting Demons, Lucid Dreaming Therapy for PTSD and Anxiety. For those plagued by recurrent nightmares, lucid dreaming can be a profoundly empowering therapeutic tool. Once a dreamer becomes lucid within a nightmare, they are no longer a helpless victim. They have agency. They can choose to confront the monster, Ask it what it wants. Use superpowers to overcome the threat. Lucid Dreaming Therapy LDT trains individuals, particularly those with PTSD, to achieve lucidity as a way to take control of their nightmares. This process can dramatically reduce nightmare frequency and daytime anxiety, as the dreamer's sense of helplessness is replaced by a feeling of mastery, both in the dream and waking worlds. 9.2 Rewriting the Script. IRT is one of the most effective and widely used treatments for chronic nightmares. It is a cognitive behavioral technique that works entirely in the waking state. The patient is instructed to write down their recurring nightmare in detail. Then, they are asked to rewrite the dream, changing it in any way they see fit, particularly the ending, to make it non-frightening or even positive. For the next 1 to 2 weeks, they spend 10 minutes, 20 minutes each day mentally rehearsing the new rewritten dream script. This process appears to reprogram the memory associated with the nightmare, and when the dream reoccurs, it often follows the new rehearsed script, stripping it of its terror. 9.3 The Dream as a Guide, Journaling and Pattern Recognition. Perhaps the most accessible tool for anyone is keeping a dream journal. The act of writing down a dream immediately upon waking is the single best way to improve dream recall, but its benefits go far beyond that. Over time, a dream journal becomes a unique database of your personal symbolism and emotional concerns. You can begin to see patterns, recurring locations, characters, or themes. You might notice that you have anxiety dreams about being unprepared whenever a deadline looms at work, or that water appears in your dreams when you are feeling emotionally overwhelmed. The journal transforms dreams from fleeting, forgotten ephemera into a rich source of self-knowledge, a personal dialogue with your own unconscious mind. Chapter 10 Stories from the Edge of Sleep. Let these stories be a gentle guide as you approach the varied landscapes of your own mind. Let them offer a new perspective on control, on fear, and on meaning. 10.1 The Lighthouse Keeper. This story is inspired by lucid dreaming. Imagine your dreaming mind is a vast, wild ocean. Most nights you are a small boat, tossed about on the waves. You are at the mercy of the story's currents and the weather of your emotions. Sometimes the sea is calm and beautiful, other times a terrifying storm rages. You have no control, you can only ride it out. But sometimes a different possibility arises. In the midst of the storm, you can realize that you are not the boat. You are the lighthouse keeper, standing on a firm island of rock in the center of the ocean. From the top of your lighthouse, you can watch the storm of the dream rage around you. The massive waves crash, the winds howl, but you are safe and aware in your tower of consciousness. You can see the storm for what it is, a temporary, magnificent, and ultimately harmless display of energy. You don't have to stop the storm, but you are no longer lost in it. You can simply stand, watch, and direct the beam of your awareness wherever you choose. As you fall asleep tonight, remember the lighthouse. Know that even in the wildest of dreams, there is a calm, aware center within you. You might just awaken to find yourself there. 10.2 The Visitor in the Attic. This story is inspired by nightmare therapy. In an old, comfortable house that was your own mind, you began to hear a sound every night. A scratching, unsettling sound from the attic. In your dreams you would run from it, hide under the covers, or try to barricade the door. The fear of the sound was immense, a recurring terror that haunted your sleep. One night, exhausted from the fear, you dream of the sound again. But this time you do something different. You stop, you take a breath, and you decide to go and see what is making the noise. You find the pull cord for the attic stairs, and slowly, heart pounding, you ascend into the dusty darkness. There, in the corner, is the source of the scratching. It is not a monster. It is a small, frightened, forgotten creature, a part of yourself you had locked away long ago. It is shivering, hungry, and lonely. It wasn't trying to scare you, it was trying to get your attention. You reach out your hand, and the creature timidly comes forward, seeking not a fight, but compassion. As you fall asleep, they don't need to be fought or fled from. They need to be met with curiosity and kindness. They are visitors who have come for healing. 10.3 The Map of the River. This story is inspired by cultural dream interpretation. Imagine a village that lives along the banks of a great. They have a map, a detailed physical map that shows every bend, every sandbar, every rapid. It is a map of the waking world, and it is very useful for navigating their boats. But the elders of the village keep another map. This one is not drawn on paper. It is woven from stories shared each morning in a circle. It is a map of their dreams. This dream map shows the river's spirit, its moods, its hidden currents. A dream of a great fish might mean the river will be generous. A dream of muddy, churning water might be a warning of a coming flood. The villagers know that to truly understand the river and to live in harmony with it, they need both maps. The physical map shows them the river's body. The dream map shows them its soul. As you prepare for sleep, consider that your life is like this river. You navigate it with your waking logical mind, your physical map, but your dreams offer you a second map. They show you the hidden emotional currents, the spiritual underpinnings, the deeper meaning of your journey. Pay attention to this second map. It may not always be literal, but it will always tell you something true about the nature of your river. Conclusion to episode I, prelude to episode I. In this episode, we have journeyed to the frontiers of the dream experience. We have learned that consciousness is not an all or nothing switch. It can flicker to life within the dream, granting us the extraordinary gift of lucidity. We have stared into the shadowlands, discerning the crucial differences between nightmares and night terrors and understanding them not just as torments, but as potentially adaptive processes that can, when necessary, be guided and healed. Finally, we have acknowledged the rich global human tradition of finding profound collective meaning in dreams, a powerful counterpoint to our modern individualized view. Our labyrinth, however, is not yet fully explored. The most speculative and tantalizing corridors still lie ahead. What does the future hold for our relationship with dreams? Can we use technology to communicate with dreamers or even to record and replay their dreams? Do non-human animals dream in the same way we do? And what do these altered states of consciousness ultimately tell us about the greatest mystery of all, the nature of consciousness itself? These are the questions we will address in our final installment, episode III, The Horizon of Consciousness, Technology, Animals, and the Unsolved Mysteries of the Dreaming Mind. Introduction to Episode III, The Unexplored Horizon. In our journey so far, we have charted the known territories of the dreaming mind. In Episode I, we mapped the fundamental neurobiology of sleep. In Episode II, we explored the frontiers of that territory, from the self-aware state of lucidity to the fearful shadowlands of nightmares, and we acknowledged the rich diversity of dream interpretation across human cultures. We now arrive at the shoreline of this vast continent of the mind, and we turn our gaze outward to the horizon. This final episode is an exploration of what may lie beyond our current understanding. We will investigate the burgeoning relationship. We will then turn our empathy and scientific curiosity to our fellow inhabitants on this planet, asking the profound question, do animals dream? Finally, we will step into the realm of philosophy, using the dream state as a unique lens through which to examine the greatest of all mysteries, the nature of consciousness itself. This is the culmination of our journey, a look at the future, a nod to our fellow creatures, and a humble acknowledgement of the great, unanswered questions that the silent cinema of the night presents to us every time we close our eyes. Chapter 11, The Dreamcatcher's Technology and the Future of Oneurology. Oneurology, the scientific study of dreams, has long been a science of inference. We have had to rely on post-sleep reports, but we are entering an era where technology may allow us to move from simply observing the dreamer to interacting with the dream itself. 11.1 The state of the art, targeted reactivation and lucid induction. Even now, in the mid-menace 2020s, the line between science fiction and reality is blurring. One of the most promising fields is targeted memory reactivation, TMR. Researchers have shown that by associating a specific memory with a sensory cue like a sound or a scent during waking hours, they can then re-expose the sleeping subject to that same cue during slow-wave sleep. This re-exposure selectively enhances the consolidation of that specific memory, leading to better recall the next day. While not direct dream manipulation, it is a first step. Simultaneously, consumer-grade technology for lucid dream induction is becoming more sophisticated. Headbands equipped with EEG sensors can accurately detect the onset of REM sleep. Once detected, they can provide subtle cues of soft pattern of lights flashing against the eyelids or gentle audio prompts designed to penetrate the dream world and alert the dreamer to their state, triggering lucidity without waking them. 11.2 Decoding the Dreamscape, the quest for neural deciphering. The holy grail of dream technology is, of course, the ability to read or record a dream. While the idea of a dream recorder that produces a perfect video file remains pure science fiction, the foundational science is making tentative progress. Using functional magnetic resonance imaging (fMRI) and machine learning algorithms, neuroscientists have been able to reconstruct rudimentary visual images from a person's brain activity while they are awake and looking at pictures. Applying this to dreams is orders of magnitude more complex. A dream is not just a visual stream, it is a multisensory, emotional, and semantic experience. A true decoder would have to decipher not just what the dreamer is seeing, but what they are feeling, who they are with, and the abstract concepts at play. At best, we might one day be able to produce a crude, symbolic sketch or a weather report of a dream's content identifying high levels of amygdala activity as fear, for example, or activity in the fusiform face area as the presence of a person. The rich, subjective experience will likely remain private for a long time to come. 11.3 Dream Engineering, the Ethics and Possibilities of Interaction. If we can decode a dream, the next logical step is to write to it. Dream engineering, the concept of actively influencing the content of a dream as it happens, is a profound and ethically fraught frontier. Imagine a therapeutic application where a veteran's PTSD nightmare is detected in real time and a calming counteractive stimulus is introduced, gently steering the dream away from trauma. Imagine a creative application where an artist or architect could be fed stimuli to help them explore a specific design concept in the hyper-associative sandbox of their dreaming mind. The possibilities are staggering, but so are the ethical dilemmas. Who gets to engineer a dream? What are the long-term psychological consequences of disrupting this natural process? What happens to privacy and the sanctity of the self when the last truly private space, our own mind, can be accessed and influenced from the outside? These are questions we must begin to ask now, as the technology on the horizon begins to come into focus. Chapter 12, The Unspoken Theater, Do Animals Dream? Anyone who has watched a dog's paws twitch and whine in its sleep has asked the question, does our monopoly on complex conscious experience extend even to our dreams? While we cannot ask a cat for a dream report, A wealth of neurological and behavioral evidence strongly suggests that we are not the only dreamers on this planet. 12.1 The Twitching Dog, Behavioral and Neurological Clues. The most compelling evidence for animal dreaming is physiological. All mammals, and even birds, exhibit the same basic sleep architecture as humans, including distinct cycles of NREM and the paradoxical state of REM sleep. During REM, their brains are highly active, their breathing becomes irregular, and their eyes dart back and forth. The brain structures that are active in human dreaming, the pons, the hippocampus, the amygdala, are all present and active in these animals during REM sleep. From a purely neurological standpoint, they are in the exact state in which humans have their most vivid dreams. The twitching, muffled barks and running motions are the behavioral leakage of the dream's content escaping the partial paralysis of rematonia. 12.2 Jovet's Dreaming Cats, Acting Out the Unseen World. The most dramatic evidence came from the work of the French neurophysiologist Michel Jovet in the 1960s. Jovet, a pioneer in sleep research, performed a precise surgery on cats, creating a small lesion in the part of the brainstem, the pons, that enforces muscle paralysis during REM sleep. The results were astonishing. When the cats entered REM sleep, instead they got up and acted out their dreams. They would stalk invisible prey, pounce on imagined mice, arch their backs, and hiss at unseen enemies, all while their brains showed the unmistakable signs of being sound asleep. They had become living windows into the feline dream world. 12.3 A Rat's Maze, A Bird's Song, The Content of Animal Dreams. If animals dream, what do they dream about? Research suggests their dreams, like ours, are a reflection of their waking lives and serve a similar function in memory consolidation. In one famous study, scientists recorded the firing patterns of neurons in the hippocampus of rats as they learned to run a maze. Later, when the rats were in REM sleep, the rats were, in a very real sense, dreaming of running the maze. Similarly, studies on zebra finches have shown that the neural patterns they use to sing their complex songs during the day are replayed during sleep. They are practicing their song in their dreams. It is logical to assume, then, that a dog dreams of chasing a ball, sniffing a new trail, or greeting its owner, and that a cat dreams of the hunt. They are dreaming of the things that are most important to their survival and well-being, using this nightly theater to consolidate memories and rehearse skills just as we do. Chapter 13, The Hard Problem in the Soft Bed, Dreams and the Nature of Consciousness. Dreams are not just a biological curiosity, they are a philosophical tool. The fact that the brain can every night create a fully immersive, subjectively real conscious experience from scratch poses a fundamental challenge and offers a unique insight into the deepest questions about who we are. 13.1 The Brain's Holodeck, The philosopher David Chalmers famously defined the hard problem of consciousness as the question of why and how we have subjective phenomenal experience or qualia. Why do we have an inner life? Why does it feel like something to see the color red or to feel sad? Dreams provide a startling demonstration of this problem. In a dream, your brain is creating a complete, conscious world without any immediate external sensory input. The feeling of the sun on your skin, the taste of an apple, the terror of falling, these are not representations of reality. They are the reality for the dreaming mind. This proves that consciousness is not merely a passive receiver of external data. It is a generative, world-building process. The brain is a reality engine or a biological holodeck, and the dream state is what happens when it runs a program of its own making. 13.2 The Predictive Mind Offline, a modern model for dream consciousness, a leading contemporary model for understanding consciousness is the predictive processing framework. This theory suggests that the brain isn't passively absorbing information. Instead, it is constantly generating a model of the world, making predictions about what it expects to see, hear, and feel next. Incoming sensory data serves to correct the errors in this prediction. Your perception of reality is actually this top-down predictive model merely updated by bottom-up sensations. From this perspective, dreams are what happen when the predictive model is running offline without the constant error correction from the external world. Unconstrained by reality, the brain is free to explore the associations within its own model. This explains the bizarre, fluid, and often illogical nature of dreams. A dream is the predictive mind set free to play with its own vast network of knowledge and memory. 13.3 The simulation in the skull. What dreams suggest about reality. The fact that we can experience an immersive, simulated reality every night naturally leads to a profound philosophical question. How can we be certain that our waking life is not also a simulation? This is the modern iteration of ancient philosophical problems like Plato's cave or Descartes' evil demon. Dreams prove that our brains have the capacity to generate a reality that is indistinguishable from the real thing from the inside. They demonstrate that our feeling of being here now is a construct of the mind. While this does not prove that our waking life is a simulation, it provides a powerful, tangible, nightly demonstration that it could be. It serves as a humbling reminder that our grip on reality is based on a perception generated by the very same organ that, just hours earlier, was convinced we could fly. Chapter 14, An Invitation to the Labyrinth, a concluding thought. Our journey through the labyrinth of Morpheus comes to an end, but the labyrinth itself remains. We began with the clockwork of sleep cycles and the chemistry of the brainstem, building a biological foundation for our nightly theater. We journeyed through its strange landscapes, meeting the lucid dreamer, and confronting the nightmare. We have now gazed at the horizon, contemplating a future of dream reading technology and acknowledging the unspoken dreams of our planet's other inhabitants. We have learned that a dream is not just one thing. It is a memory consolidator, an emotional regulator, a threat simulator, a creativity engine, and a source of profound philosophical insight. It is a biological process as fundamental as breathing and a phenomenological experience as rich as life itself. It is the place where our neurons and our narratives meet. The ultimate conclusion of this exploration is not a final answer, but an invitation. It is an invitation to approach your own sleep not as a passive void, but as an active, meaningful part of your existence. It is an invitation to greet your dreams, the beautiful, the frightening, the mundane, the bizarre with curiosity and respect. For every night, you are granted access to the most complex and mysterious object in the known universe, your own mind. The labyrinth awaits. Chapter 15, Stories for the Waking World. 3 Anecdotes for a New Day. These final stories are not designed to help you sleep. They are about how the wisdom of the night can be carried into the light of day. 15.1 The Compass Maker. There once was a compass maker who did not use magnets for his work. Instead, he used his dreams. Every night he would journey through strange and wonderful lands in his sleep. He would dream of cities made of crystal, forests where the trees hummed, and oceans of liquid light. When he awoke, he would not dismiss these visions. He would sit and recall the feeling each dream left him with. A dream of a soaring mountain peak gave him a feeling of courage. A dream of a quiet, hidden cove gave him a feeling of peace. He then built his compasses. One compass did not point north, but was inscribed with the word courage, and its needle would tremble and settle when its holder was making a brave choice. Another was inscribed creativity, and it would guide its owner towards inspiration. He taught his customers that the most important directions in life are not geographical, but emotional. Your dreams, he would say, are the true navigators. They do not show you where to go on a map, but they remind you of the feelings you should be navigating toward in your waking life. 15.2 The Mended Vessel. In a small village lived a potter renowned for her exquisite vases. One night, she had a terrible nightmare in which her most prized creation, a vase of stunning beauty, fell from its pedestal and shattered into 1,000 pieces. She awoke with a feeling of profound loss and anxiety. For days she was afraid to even touch the vase. Then she remembered the old art of kintsugi, where broken pottery is mended with lacquer mixed with powdered gold, making the repaired piece even more beautiful and precious for having been broken. She looked not at her vase, but at her life. She thought of a friendship that had been shattered by harsh words months ago. The dream, she realized, was not a prophecy of a broken pot, but a reflection of her broken relationship. Taking inspiration from the golden joinery of kintsugi, she went to her friend, offered a heartfelt apology, and mended the bond between them. The nightmare of the shattered vessel did not lead to loss, but to a beautiful, golden act of repair in the waking world. 15.3 The Shared Echo. Two brothers lived on opposite sides of a valley. They had grown distant over the years, speaking only of trivial matters. One morning, the first brother called the second. "I had the strangest dream," he said. "I dreamt I was standing on the old stone bridge, and I heard a bell ringing, but I couldn't see the bell tower." The second brother was silent for a moment. "That's impossible," he finally said. "I had the very same dream." This shared echo from their sleeping minds opened a door that had long been closed. They met at the old stone bridge that very day. They talked about the dream, and then about their lives, their fears, their unspoken worries for each other and their families. The bell they had both heard was the echo of their shared history, a call to reconnect. They realized that while their waking lives had diverged, their deeper selves were still connected, still resonating with the same silent music. The dream did not create the connection, but it reminded them it was there waiting to be heard. Final coda. The sun rises. The dream fades. The weaver's tapestry is folded, the gardener's work is done, the celestial archivist closes the library. But the threads, the pruned branches, the rearranged stars remain. They are woven into the fabric of the person who awakens. You are not the same as the one who fell asleep. You are the sum of your days and, just as importantly, the wisdom of your nights. Go forth and live them both. Introduction to episode IV Echoes in the Corridors. Having concluded our primary exploration, we now return to the labyrinth with a new purpose. We are not seeking to map its main structure, but to listen for the echoes that resonate between its walls. The dream state is not an isolated island in our mental archipelago. It is a peninsula deeply connected to the mainland of our waking lives in ways both subtle and profound. This fourth installment, The Tangled Weft, examines these connections. We will investigate how the dreaming mind is in constant, subtle dialogue with the physical body. We will delve deeper into the crucible of creation, understanding the precise neurological conditions that make dreams such a potent source of artistic and scientific breakthroughs. We will then venture to the very borders of sleep, exploring the strange twilight states of consciousness like hypnagogia and the effects of dream-inducing substances or onogens. Finally, we will touch upon the nuanced and often overlooked topic of how our social realities, such as gender, are reflected and processed in the dream world. This is an exploration of the in-between spaces, the threads that connect our dreams to ourselves, our culture, and our conscious awareness. It is a testament to the fact that the dreaming mind is not a separate reality, but a deeply integrated part of our whole being. Chapter 16, The Body's Whisper, Prodromal Dreams and Physical Health. For centuries, anecdotal reports have suggested that dreams can sometimes predict the onset of physical illness. A person might dream of a wound on their chest days before a heart attack, or of an insect burrowing into their leg, where a tumor is later found. Once dismissed as superstition, these prodromal dreams, from the Greek prodromos, meaning running before, are now being investigated as a genuine phenomenon rooted in the brain's subtle sensory capacities during sleep. 16.1 Listening in the quiet interoception and the sleeping brain. The scientific explanation for prodromal dreams lies not in prophecy, but in interoception, the sense of the internal state of the body. During the day, our brains are bombarded with external stimuli, sights, sounds, social demands. This external noise often drowns out the subtle low-level signals coming from our internal organs. During sleep, in this profound quiet, the brain can listen to the body with far greater sensitivity. It can detect faint signals of inflammation, minor respiratory distress, subtle changes in organ function, or the biochemical markers of a developing infection signals that are far too weak to cross the threshold of waking consciousness. 16.2 The symbolic language of sickness. The dreaming brain does not process these raw physiological signals logically. As we know, the prefrontal cortex is offline. Instead, the brain does what it does best in REM sleep. It translates the raw data into a metaphorical, symbolic narrative. A subtle, recurring difficulty in breathing due to undiagnosed sleep apnea or a cardiac issue might be translated into a terrifying dream of drowning, being buried alive, or having a heavy weight on one's chest. The biochemical signals of a burgeoning infection might be symbolized as a dream of being covered in insects or of decay and rot. A localized, low-grade inflammation could be represented as a specific wound or flaw in a dream character or object. The dream is essentially creating a metaphorical health report, a symbolic representation of a real, underlying biological process. 16.3 From anecdote to evidence, modern research. While still a nascent field, research is beginning to support these ideas. Studies on patients with Parkinson's disease, for example, have revealed that a specific type of distressing, violent dream REM sleep behavior disorder, where people act out their dreams, can precede the motor symptoms of the disease by years or even decades. It's thought that the neurodegeneration in the brainstem that causes Parkinson's, as our ability to monitor physiology during sleep. Chapter 17, The Crucible of Creation, the Role of Dreams in Art and Science. We have previously touched upon the role of dreams in creativity. Here, we will examine the mechanism more closely, viewing the dream state as a unique neurological crucible where the raw materials of knowledge are melted down and forged into something entirely new. 17.1 The hyper-associative state, a cauldron for ideas. The key to the creative power of REM sleep lies in its unique neurochemical and neuroanatomical state. The combination of high acetylcholine levels promoting access to a vast network of memories, low norepinephrine and serotonin levels weakening the rigid logical links between concepts, a deactivated dorsolateral prefrontal cortex silencing the internal critic and the voice of linear reason. This creates a state of hyperassociation. The brain is free to make wide, sweeping, and improbable connections between disparate memories, ideas, and emotions. It is a state of cognitive fluidity that is almost impossible to achieve in waking life. An image from childhood can connect to a mathematical problem from yesterday. The emotion of a recent argument can be mapped onto the structure of a piece of music. This is the neurological cauldron where true out-of-the-box thinking occurs. 17.2 Case Studies in Genius, From Frankenstein to Relativity. History is a catalogue of these creative sparks. Mary Shelley, struggling to write a ghost story, had a waking dream of a pale student of unhallowed arts kneeling beside the thing he had put together, giving birth to the iconic image of Frankenstein. Salvador Dali, the master of surrealism, intentionally used the hypnagogic state to source his imagery, holding a key in his hand that would drop and wake him the moment he fell asleep, allowing him to capture the bizarre juxtapositions of the dream borderland. Elias Howe famously solved the problem of the sewing machine needle after dreaming he was captured by a tribe. Even Albert Einstein reported that a dream he had as a teenager in which he rode a sled down a steep hill so fast he approached at the speed of light, causing the stars to appear distorted, was a crucial seed for his later work on the theory of relativity. 17.3 The dream as spark, not fire, the role of waking work. It is crucial to note that the dream is rarely the finished product. It is the spark, not the fire. Howe had to apply his waking engineering skills to the insight from his dream. Haeckel had to perform years of lab work to prove the benzene ring structure he dreamt of. The dream provides the novel connection, the paradigm-shifting insight. But it is the disciplined, logical, waking mind that must catch that spark and painstakingly build it into a coherent theory, a finished novel, or a working invention. Chapter 18 Onorigins and Hypnagogia Dreams at the Borders of Consciousness. The dream state is not as clearly delineated as we might think. There are strange, fascinating borderlands transitional states and induced states that share many of its properties and shed light on its nature. 18.1 The Twilight Gates, Exploring the Hypnagogic State. Hypnagogia is the state of consciousness during the onset of sleep. Its counterpart upon waking is hypnopompia. It is a fluid, unpredictable state where the structures of waking thought begin to dissolve. It is often characterized by vivid, fleeting, and often disconnected visual imagery, auditory hallucinations, such as hearing one's name called or snippets of music, unusual bodily sensations, like the feeling of floating, spinning, or the classic hypnic jerk preceded by a falling sensation. This state represents the battle for control between the conscious mind and the emerging dream process. The PFC is beginning to power down, allowing the hyper-associative chaos of the deeper mind to bubble to the surface before the full dream narrative takes hold. Many artists and thinkers, like Dole and Thomas Edison, have intentionally mined this state for its raw, unfiltered creativity. 18.2 Onorygens. The dream-inducing pharmacopoeia. An onorygen, from the Greek oniros, dream, and gen, to create, is a substance that produces or enhances dream-like states of consciousness. Many cultures have a long history of using onorogenic plants in shamanic or spiritual contexts to intentionally seek guidance from the dream world. Kali zacachichi, the dream herb from Mexico, was used by the Chontal people to induce more vivid, meaningful, and lucid dreams. Silene undulata, the African dream root of the Xhosa people, is used to induce prophetic dreams and facilitate communication with ancestors. These substances often work by modulating the neurotransmitter systems like the acetylcholine system that are directly involved in generating REM sleep. 18.3 The shared neurological roots of dreams and psychedelia. Modern neuroscience has revealed a fascinating overlap between the dreaming brain and the brain under the influence of classic psychedelic substances like psilocybin or DMT. Both states are characterized by a decrease in the top-down control of the prefrontal cortex and an increase in brain-wide connectivity and entropy. The brain's default mode network associated with self-referential thought becomes less dominant, allowing for more unusual connections and a dissolution of the ego. This suggests that dreaming can be seen as a kind of endogenous psychedelic state, a nightly safe exploration of the same altered consciousness that these substances produce chemically. Chapter 19: The Forgotten Half-Gender and the Dreaming Mind. While dreaming is a universal human experience, its specific content can be shaped by our waking lives, which are in turn shaped by culture and society. Research into gender and dream content reveals subtle but consistent patterns that highlight this connection. 19.1 Charting the differences. Large-scale content analysis. Decades of dream research involving the analysis of tens of thousands of dream reports pioneered by researchers like William Domhoff have identified statistical differences in typical dream content between men and women. Aggression, men's dreams tend to feature more physical aggression, with the male dreamer often being both the aggressor and the victim. Women's dreams, while containing similar overall levels of aggression, tend to feature it in more relational or verbal forms. Characters men are more likely to dream predominantly about other men, the male-male bias. Women tend to dream of a more balanced cast of male and female characters. Setting and activity: men's dreams statistically feature more outdoor settings, weapons, and goal-oriented activities. Women's dreams are more likely to be set indoors and involve more conversation and social emotional themes. 19.2 The continuity hypothesis, a reflection of waking life. These differences are best explained by the continuity hypothesis of dreaming, which posits that dream content is, for the most part, a continuation of our waking thoughts, concerns, and experiences. The differences found in dreams do not suggest an innate hardwired difference in male and female brains. Instead, they reflect the differing social roles, cultural expectations, and lived realities that men and women have historically experienced. As societal roles evolve and become more fluid, it is hypothesized that these statistical differences in dream content will also begin to converge. 19.3 Beyond the binary, a call for more nuanced research. It is crucial to note that much of this research was conducted with a binary view of gender. The future of this field lies in exploring the dream content of transgender and non-binary individuals, which could provide profound insights into how identity, rather than just biological sex or social role, shapes the landscape of our inner world. Chapter 20 Dialogues in the Dark, New Anecdotes on Integration. As this is our final exploration, let these stories be about the dialogue between worlds, about listening to the whispers from our other life and bringing their wisdom into the light. 20.1 The Beekeeper's Warning. A woman who kept bees was known for her deep, intuitive connection to her hives. One night, she dreamt that she walked out to her apiary, and instead of the familiar industrious hum, there was a profound silence. The dream filled her with a quiet dread. In the morning, she went to her hives. They looked fine, the bees were flying, the hum was present. She could have dismissed the dream, but its feeling lingered. Trusting the whisper, she performed a full, meticulous inspection, something she wasn't scheduled to do for weeks. In the deepest frames of the third hive, by catching it weeks earlier than she otherwise would have, she was able to treat the colony and save it from collapse. The dream was the body of the hive, whispering to her body in the quiet of the night. 20.2 The Musician's Bridge. A composer was working on a symphony. He had two powerful, soaring melodies, but he could not find a way to connect them. Everything he wrote felt forced, a clumsy, logical plank between two beautiful shores. Frustrated, he fell into an exhausted sleep. He dreamt he was standing on one side of a great chasm with one of his melodies singing from the cliffs. On the other side the second melody answered. Between them there was no bridge of stone or wood. There was only a swirling, shimmering bridge made of woven fog and morning mist. It was a bridge of atmosphere, not substance. He woke with a gasp. The solution wasn't a new chord progression. It was to dissolve the orchestra into a soft, ambient texture, a musical fog out of which the second theme could gracefully emerge. The dream had taught him to connect not with logic, but with atmosphere. 20.3 The Cartographer's Blank Space. A master cartographer prided himself on the perfection of his maps. He knew every river, every mountain, every contour of the lands he charted. One night he dreamt he was showing his magnum opus the great map of his own kingdom to a king. As he unrolled it, he was horrified to see a large, perfectly blank, white space right in the center of a place where a forest should have been. In the dream the king looked at him and asked, "Why have you hidden this land from me?" The cartographer woke in a cold sweat. He knew the dream was not about his paper maps. It was about the map of his own life. The blank space was a part of his own heart, an old grief he had refused to explore or even acknowledge. The dream wasn't an answer. It was a question pointing him toward the uncharted territory within himself, reminding him that the most important maps are not of the world, but of the soul. Conclusion to episode IV. Weaving the threads together, our final return to the labyrinth has revealed how deeply its passages are connected to the entire castle of our being. A dream is not a ghost that visits in the night. It is a conversation. It is the body talking to the mind, the right hemisphere talking to the left. It is the place where our biology, our biography, our anxieties, and our highest aspirations are tangled together in a mysterious nightly weft. To pay attention to our dreams is to pay attention to the whole of ourselves. It is to learn a second language, a mother tongue of metaphor and emotion that is spoken in the dark. It is the other half of our life, and its wisdom is always there, waiting for us to listen. Our exploration is complete. The invitation remains. Introduction to Episode V. The question at the center. We have walked the corridors of the brain, followed the electrical impulses and the chemical tides. We have stood in the silent cinema of REM sleep and watched the nightly theater unfold. We have explored its variations, its terrors, its creative sparks, and its tangled connections to our bodies and our cultures. But with all our scientific knowledge, a central question remains, a question that is not scientific but philosophical. It is the Minotaur that waits at the heart of the labyrinth. What does the existence of dreams tell us about the nature of reality and the self? This final episode is a philosophical inquiry. We will set aside the ego and the free and take up the tools of the great thinkers who have grappled with the dream as a fundamental problem of human existence. We will walk with Descartes as he doubts the world, with Bergson as he dives into the river of memory, and with Sartre as he confronts the dizzying freedom of the imagination. This is not a search for more data, but for deeper meaning. It is an attempt to understand not just how we dream, but what it means that we are creatures who dream. Chapter 21, Le Rêve-Cartésien, The Dream Argument and the Search for Certainty. Modern philosophy of the mind begins in many ways with a nightmare, or more accurately, the possibility of one. In his Meditations on First Philosophy 1641, the French philosopher René Descartes unleashed an argument so powerful that it continues to haunt us to this day. 21.1 The Demon of Doubt, questioning the fabric of reality. Descartes set himself the task of finding absolute certainty. To do this, he decided he must first demolish all of his beliefs that could be doubted in the slightest. He begins by noting that his senses sometimes deceive him. But while he might be mistaken about a distant object, surely he cannot doubt that he is here sitting by the fire holding this piece of paper. This is where the dream argument enters. Descartes observes, "I have convinced myself that there is absolutely nothing in the world." He notes that his dreams are often as vivid and convincing as his waking life. There are no certain marks by which he can distinguish the state of being awake from the state of being asleep. For all he knows, this entire experience of sitting by the fire might be an elaborate dream. 21.2 The Indubitable Self, Cogito ergo sum. The dream argument is a tool of radical doubt. It shatters our naive trust in the reality of the external world. Is there anything left that cannot be doubted? Descartes finds one thing. Even if he is dreaming, even if an evil demon is deceiving him about everything, he cannot doubt that he is the one who is dreaming and being deceived. The very act of doubting proves the existence of a thinker. This leads to his famous bedrock of certainty, cogito ergo sum. I think, therefore I am. For Descartes, the dream is the ultimate symbol of uncertainty about the world, but it is also the crucible in which the certainty of the self is forged. The dream forces us to distinguish our mind, whose existence we can be sure of, from the world, whose reality is forever open to question. 21.3 The Cartesian Legacy in a Digital World. Descartes' 400-year-old problem is more relevant than ever. His thought experiment is the philosophical ancestor of films like The Matrix and the concept of the brain in a vat. The nightly reality of dreaming serves as a permanent, biological reminder that our immersive, subjectively real experience can be generated entirely from within. It is the original virtual reality, and it forces upon us the fundamental epistemological question: what is real and how can we know? Chapter 22, The Stream of Consciousness, Henri Bergson, on Dreams and Memory. A century ago, Another great French philosopher, Henri Bergson, offered a radically different view. For Bergson, the dream was not a problem of reality, but a window into the nature of time and memory. 22.1 The two memories, habit versus pure recollection. Bergson argued that we have two kinds of memory. The first is habit memory, the practical bodily memory that helps us navigate the world like remembering how to ride a bicycle. The second and more profound is pure memory or pure recollection. This, for Bergson, is the complete, incorruptible record of our entire past, with every sensation and feeling preserved in perfect detail. Our past, he argued, is not gone. It is conserved in its totality within us. 22.2 The brain as a reducing valve. If we store everything, why can't we access it all? Bergson's brilliant insight was that the primary function of the waking brain is not to remember, but to forget. The brain acts as a reducing valve or a filter. It is an organ of action, and to act effectively in the present, it must filter out the overwhelming totality of our past and show us only the tiny fraction that is relevant to our immediate needs. Waking consciousness, for Bergson, is a state of intentional limitation. 22.3 Dreams as the unfiltered past. What happens in sleep? The need for action vanishes. The pressure of the present moment is released. And so the reducing valve of the brain opens. For Bergson, a dream is the surging forth of this pure, unfiltered memory. It is the past freed from the constraints of practical action, emerging in a free associative and often symbolic play. In a dream, you are not creating fantasies from nothing, you are swimming in the vast. This is why dreams are so saturated with long-forgotten faces, places, and feelings. They are, in Bergson's view, a brief, nightly glimpse of the totality of our being unbound by the pragmatic demands of the waking world. Chapter 23, The Existential Dream, Sartre, Freedom, and the Imagination. For the existentialist Jean-Paul Sartre, the importance of the dream was not about reality or memory, but about freedom. 23.1 Consciousness as nothingness, the power to imagine. Sartre famously claimed that consciousness is a nothingness. By this, he meant that unlike a rock or a table, which is a solid in itself, consciousness is in for itself. It is defined by its ability to distance itself from the world, to be aware of what is not there. This power to conceive of absence, to negate the present, is the very essence of imagination and the root of human freedom. 23.2 The dream as radical freedom. The dream is the ultimate expression of this imaginative freedom. In the dream state, consciousness is completely untethered from the constraints of the physical world. It demonstrates its power to create a world ex nihilo out of nothing. The dream is a nightly proof of our own radical freedom, a demonstration that we are not simply products of our environment, but creators of worlds. 23.3 Lucidity as existential authenticity. However, in a typical dream, we deny this freedom. We experience the dream as something that is happening to us. We see the dream monster and we run pretending we are not both the monster and the one who runs. For Sartre, this would be a classic example of bad faith mauvaise foi fleeing from the awesome responsibility of our own freedom by pretending we are a mere object, a victim of circumstance. From a Sartrean perspective, the lucid dream is the ultimate act of existential authenticity. It is the moment the dreamer confronts their own creative power. To become lucid is to shout, "I am not a victim of this world, I am its author." It is the transition from bad faith to the terrifying, exhilarating, and total acceptance of one's own freedom to create one's reality. Chapter 24, The Narrative Self. Finally, let us turn to a more contemporary philosophical view, one deeply influenced by another French thinker, Paul Ricoeur. This perspective sees dreams as essential to the very construction of our identity. 24.1 Identity as Story, the work of Paul Ricoeur. The theory of narrative identity posits that the self is not a static object or a soul, but an ongoing story. We create our sense of who we are by weaving the disparate events of our lives, our past actions, our present experiences, our future hopes into a coherent, unfolding narrative. As Ricoeur put it, we are the stories we tell about ourselves. 24.2 The Dream as a Narrative Workshop. If our life is a story, then the dream state is the author's nightly workshop. It is here that the raw, often chaotic material of the day's experiences is processed. The dreaming mind acts like an experimental novelist, taking events and trying to fit them into the larger plot of our life. It tries out different symbolic connections, explores emotional subplots, and rehearses potential future scenes. The bizarre nature of dreams is the sign of a workshop in progress. It is the messy, non-linear process of drafting and editing the self. 24.3 Integrating the night, making the self whole. A dream that is simply had and forgotten is like a crumpled up draft. But a dream that is remembered, reflected upon, and perhaps told to another becomes integrated into our life's story. It adds a new layer of meaning, a new symbol, a new insight. By working with our dreams, we are actively participating in the construction of our own identity. We are taking the nocturnal drafts and editing them into the final, published version of ourself. Chapter 25, Parables from the Center, Final Anecdotes on Being. These last stories are not about sleeping or waking, but about the nature of being itself. They are parables from the philosophical heart of the labyrinth. 25.1 The Painter's Studio. A woman dreamt every night that she was a figure in a vast, complex painting. She felt the texture of the canvas on her back and saw the world only through the thick, shimmering pigments of the artist's paint. She was often terrified, feeling trapped by the story. The artist was painting a storm, a chase, a scene of sorrow. She felt powerless, a mere object in someone else's creation. One night, a realization dawned within the painted world. There is a brush. She looked down, and in her hand was a fine sable brush. With a shock of terror and joy she understood she was the painter. The world was her canvas, the story her composition. She was not the figure in the painting, she was the consciousness creating it. 25.2 The Library of Echoes. A very old man, who felt his memories were fading like old photographs, dreamt he was walking through an infinite library. It was utterly silent. He pulled a book from a shelf. It had no words. But as he opened it, he was no longer in the library. He was a small boy, feeling the warmth of the sun on his face as he tasted a wild strawberry for the very first time. He lived the moment in its entirety. He closed the book and was back in the library. He opened another and felt the sting of his first heartbreak, another, and heard a forgotten piece of music with perfect clarity. He awoke with tears in his eyes, realizing that his past was not lost. It was not a faded photograph. It was a living library, and every single moment was preserved waiting silently within him. 25.3 The Weaver's Loose Thread. We return one last time to the weaver. She sat before the great tapestry of a life. In the very center was a single, ugly, frayed thread. It was a thread of great failure and shame. In a recurring nightmare, the owner of this life would dream that the weaver tried to pull the thread out, but each time she did, the entire tapestry would begin to unravel into chaos. One night, the dream changed. Instead of trying to remove the thread, the weaver brought her shuttle close. With infinite care, she began to weave around the ugly thread. She passed threads of gold wisdom and silver compassion over and under it, transforming it. The flaw was not removed, it was integrated. It became the dark, strong center of a new, complex, and breathtakingly beautiful pattern. The owner of the life awoke, and for the first time made peace with his failure, understanding it was not the end of his story, but the very center of his strength. Conclusion to Episode V: Awakening from the Essay. We have come to the end. From the biological dance of neurons to the grand philosophical questions of being, our exploration of the labyrinth is complete. We have found no single answer, no simple map to the exit. Instead, we have found that the labyrinth itself is the destination. The center is not a monster to be slain, but a mirror. It reflects back to us our deepest nature. We are the creatures who live a double life. We are the solid, acting beings of the daylight world, and we are the fluid, world-creating consciousness of the night. The dream is the nightly proof of our boundless inner reality. It is a reminder that the most profound, mysterious, and uncharted territory is not in the stars above, but in the space behind our own eyes. The essay is over. The exploration is yours to continue. Awaken.